Roza Shanina conquered the front lines with 59 kills. Now, the final nightmare. Prussian offensive. Assault on Königsberg, meat grinder of East Prussia. Her tragic death awaits in this brutal finale. Part 3 begins. The unseen terrors end. Full 55-minute movie above. Complete diary story. Autumn, 1944. Operation Bagration had already thundered across Europe. Soviet forces were pushing into East Prussia. The front tightened into knots of brutal fighting, fortified lines, counterattacks, days when a single ridge could cost hundreds of lives. In these battles, Roza changed quickly. The quiet, smiling girl who wrote letters at night was becoming a sniper spoken of throughout the army. She has over 30 confirmed kills. Commanders respected her, soldiers knew her name, and her photographs appeared in frontline newspapers.
Sometimes I read what they write about me. It feels as if it's not about me at all. As if it's another Roza, one who walks forward without looking back.
Her rise coincided with the hardest stage of the war, and the louder her name became, the quieter her own thoughts grew.
Another correspondent came today, said I should take a photo for the front page. I didn't want to. It feels strange being photographed before a battle, as if war is some kind of exhibition. They say I'm up to over 30 confirmed now. They count, they write it down, but I don't. I don't want to. To be honest, I don't like that they write about me. It feels unreal, as if they're talking about someone else. Some girl who fears nothing, smiles in every picture, and always knows what to do. And I still just want to go forward, closer to the work, closer to the men out there in the mud. But once again, they try to hold me back, protect me, as if I'm made of glass. Sometimes it feels like the more they write about me, the further I am from the job. And I came here to work, not to pose.
In the middle of autumn 1944, after the sweeping success of Operation Bagration, the Soviet army pushed toward East Prussia. The front was moving fast, and Roza moved with it. Her commanders knew her name, so did the newspapers, and more often she heard, "Protect her. We need snipers like this." But Roza refused to stay in the rear. She always fought to be where things were hardest.
When they keep me behind, I cannot sit still. I need to be where my men are working. I don't ask for awards. I don't need pretty words. I need work. My job. The front. When the newspapers praise me, I feel embarrassed. They write about me, but there are so many who do no less. But if I'm honest, I'm glad they hear me. It means I'm not here for nothing.
Her popularity grew. Soldiers recognized her. Commanders argued whether to send her forward, where she was most effective, or hold her back so she wouldn't be lost. But Roza always found a way to go where she was needed not as a symbol, but as a sniper. By the end of 1944, Roza Shanina's name was known far beyond her regiment. Frontline newspapers wrote about her. Commanders cited her results in official reports, and it was then that formal recognition followed. For precision, composure, and dozens of confirmed targets, Roza Shanina was recommended for an award, the Order of Glory 3rd Class. For some, this would be a path to fame. For Roza, it was awkwardness and an inner quiet.
Today they announced it. I'm being put up for an award. Everyone congratulates me, but I can't quite understand why. Each of us does the same. Every day. We shoot, we move, we hold on. I don't like being singled out. It feels as if all this isn't about me, but about the war.
But war rarely stops. It rewards, and a day later it takes away. A few months later, Roza received a second decoration, the Order of Glory Second Class, a level achieved by very few. She wrote about it briefly, modestly, as if it had nothing to do with her.
More congratulations. They say they're proud of me, but all I want is to return to the front line. There is work. There, things make sense. Here, only talk. To be honest, I don't feel like a hero.
Her awards were deserved, her achievements exceptional. But to Roza herself, they were only paper, metal, and another reason to keep her in the rear when she longed to be where, as she put it, the real work is done, not discussed. After the newspaper publications and the awards, people around Roza changed. Soldiers now came to her not just as a comrade, but for advice. They asked her how to breathe when shooting, how to choose a position, how to hold steady under fear. Commanders looked at her differently, not as a young girl, but as a fighter who could do what many could not.
They ask me things as if I know all the answers. I only do my work, and I feel fear just like they do. Today they said again that others follow my example. I only think I must not fail them.
Popularity did not change her. She became more serious, stricter with herself, quieter. But one thing stayed the same. She kept pushing toward the front line. Every attempt to keep her in the rear felt to her like a punishment.
Awards, newspapers, talk, all of it slows me down. I need to be there, where the work is, where things are simple, either you or them. Here, among smiles and words, I feel out of place.
They respected her, admired her, used her as an example. But inside, Roza grew more reserved, more direct, more adult. And it seemed, the louder her name became, the quieter she herself grew.
They say maybe they won't let us go farther. That girls shouldn't cross into Germany. That it's too dangerous, too difficult, too much. But why am I here then? If not to fight, if not to finish what I came for? I don't want to be held back. I don't want to be protected. I want to be where the battle matters. If they don't let us forward, I don't know what I'll do. But I know I can't stay behind.
Roza was no longer just a frontline sniper. She had become a specialist. Someone commanders sent to the places where precision mattered more than numbers, where a single shot could decide whether a unit advanced or died in the snow. She worked as a counter-sniper. She hunted those who hunted our soldiers, sometimes in duels, sometimes in silence, sometimes in the chaos of battle. They said she could fire 2 shots so quickly that observers saw only one motion, 2 bullets landing almost in the same point. For Roza, it wasn't a trick, it was discipline. And this is why, when the fighting in East Prussia began, the most fortified, the most brutal front of the war, commanders wanted fighters like her. Those who would hold steady, those who could see further, those who did not break. In the autumn of 1944, units of the Red Army stepped onto German soil for the first time. East Prussia, a land long considered impregnable, home of Prussian officer tradition, a place where war was not a profession but an inheritance. Among those who crossed the border early was the unit where Roza Shanina served. If autumn was the beginning of the path, then winter was its true face. East Prussia was not just territory, it was a continuous fortified region. Every village, a defensive knot. Every cellar, a firing point. Every road, a corridor covered by German guns to the last meter. Sappers said, "Prussia is a place where the ground itself tries to kill you." The advance was slow, costly. Every kilometer came at a price, a very high price. For infantry, Prussia was a meat grinder. For a sniper, an endless hunting field where the hunter was always in someone else's sights. German snipers worked with precision, cold discipline, and intimate knowledge of their land. They knew the attackers would come no matter the cost. Roza answered them in kind, and more. She did not count her results by newspaper numbers. She fired 2 shots into 1 point, a double shot, so clean that the target often never had time to fall after the first. She tracked enemy snipers for hours, for days. Their craft mirrored her own. She respected them and destroyed them.
What happiness to fight for the happiness of others. If I must die for the common happiness, I am ready.
People in her unit spoke of her often. Newspapers wrote about her. The Western press once called her the unseen terror of East Prussia. German reports mentioned a young female sniper who worked with a precision and calm few seasoned soldiers possessed. But Roza herself never saw anything heroic in it.
What have I really done? No more than I must, standing up to defend my motherland.
Those who served beside her said, after Prussia she became quieter, sharper in her movements, as if she returned from battle not entirely whole, as if something remained there in the white, empty fields where the men she hunted lay scattered. She still smiled, politely, warmly, but her eyes had changed.
Sometimes I feel that I have strength only for battle, not for life.
In one of the Prussian engagements, she was wounded. A bullet tore through her shoulder. Later, she wrote, as if it had simply been scalded by something hot. No pain, no fear, no sense of the body breaking. She was not afraid of the wound. She feared something else, being kept in the rear again. All she wanted was to return to the front line.
I was made for life, not for war. But if war does not let me go, then I am needed here.
East Prussia did not break her at once. It broke her slowly, like ice cracking beneath a person's steps, not suddenly, but inevitably. And with each new day, the war took from Roza what she gave freely, another part of herself. This was not the war she imagined when she longed to leave the rear, not the war she pictured when she wanted to see real fighting. This was a war that looked her in the eyes, and she looked back. And Roza held that gaze until the very end. The deeper the units moved into East Prussia, the fewer remained of those who had begun this path with her. Villages burned, companies disappeared. People she shared bread with yesterday lay face down in the snow today. In one of her letters, Roza wrote a simple line.
From the entire division, only 4 of us are left.
It wasn't a complaint, not a cry of despair. It was like noting the weather, a fact that neither she nor anyone else could change anymore. Death surrounded her constantly, and more often, too close.
Death is different for everyone, but here it is always the same. Quick.
She saw death every day, but the strangest thing was realizing that she was getting used to it. Not because she wanted to, but because otherwise you can't remain whole, even on the outside. Those who were around her remembered. Sometimes she returned from a mission as if from far away, as if part of her mind stayed behind, among those she could no longer save. Roza, short, painfully alive. When there are so many dead around, it's hard to remember that you're alive. The longer the fighting in East Prussia continued, the fewer words remained. Roza's diary was changing. Her lines grew shorter, and their meaning heavier. Her entries were no longer stories. They were markers, little flags on the map of places she had been, and places where someone stayed forever.
It's hard for me to find solace.
During these weeks, she almost never wrote about herself, never wrote about the future. Sometimes, not a single word about the day she had survived. Those who were near her noticed. She began to speak more slowly, and more often, chose silence.
I no longer feel useful to anyone.
With every battle, it became clearer. Prussia didn't break people with screams, but with silence, with what was left after the shots. Death was always close, but now it stopped frightening her, and that was the most frightening thing of all.
Strange. The more death I see, the quieter I become.
Her diary was still breathing, but the lines were thinning out, as if disappearing between the battles. And soon would come the moment when the silence around her would become louder than any words. By January 1945, East Prussia had become a storm that swallowed everyone in its path. The troops were advancing toward Allenstein. They fought for every ravine, every copse of trees, for every house that was still standing. Roza Shanina was at the front line, exactly where she wanted to be, where, as she said, the work is done, not discussed. On January 27, 1945, her unit came under intense fire. The infantry suffered heavy losses. Roza, as always, pushed forward, toward the one place where there was still a chance to save at least a single wounded man. When her severely wounded commander fell on an open patch of ground, Roza ran toward him. A few steps, a few seconds, and a shell fragment exploded beside her. The wound was fatal.
It is hard for me to find solace.
It became one of the last sentences in her notebook. She died in the arms of medics. She was 20 years old. Her comrades later wrote that she remained calm, that even in her final moments she was thinking not of herself. She was buried on the outskirts of the East Prussian village of Dahlmann. Her grave was lost after the war. Only a record in the documents remained, and her diary, a thin notebook filled with words that grew shorter and heavier toward the end. Her story lived longer than she did. Photographs, a few newspaper pages, letters, and the memory of those who saw how a fragile young woman could be braver than fear and more honest than war. 4 members of her family went to the front. 4, and none of them returned home. Roza Shanina lived a brief life, but she left behind not a legend, a truth. The truth of how war takes the bravest, and how sometimes a 20-year-old girl can be stronger than death. Roza Shanina's story ends in tragedy. From Siberian girl to sniper legend, gone too soon. Watch the full 55-minute movie on channel above. Subscribe and many more gripping Eastern Front diaries ahead.